sweaty I am, and this is awesomeness. We are just getting off a long walk. If you let me see here, I'm going to get into the chat box. Feel free to chat me up. How did you guys hear about it? Just out of curiosity, before we get going here, I'm just kind of curious. Enter in the chat box here how you heard about this. If it was Periscope, I'm going to write hello here. If you heard about it through Periscope, just let me know. Or if you heard about it through the website or any of our team members, bear with me.
I'm taking my socks off. What do you need?
Sweet. No, I got my seltzer here. I'm good. So that's that. So we're going to try to make this, let me see here. I'm going to let a couple people hop on board here. Can I turn what?
They can see that.
Oh, you want to see that? I figured I'd be backlit if I did that.
No, to see the lake behind us? No, that's way nicer.
I don't know. All right. Well, yeah, but then I'm sitting in the sun. All right. Yeah, no.
How's that?
That doesn't work.
I'm just trying to get
some
lake access.
We're just totally.
We're winging it.
We're winging it. I just spilled my soda. All right. Anyway.
Nothing a dirty wet sock can't fix.
Anyway, here we go. So, what do I have here? I got a couple people signed on board. Hello, Periscope. Fantastic. Well, thank you all for signing on here. I think this is going to be great information. I just love to share this. I've talked about a lot of these concepts. I've talked about a lot of these concepts on Periscope a bunch of times, but I'm just not capable of getting into the detail that I like to get into to help people because, quite frankly, Periscope is a little bit of a limited medium for me to share this message simply because, you know, I can't show you a lot of the tools that I have at my disposal. I can't show you or share with you a lot of the stuff that I could show you on my screen and so on and so forth. What's that? Oh, sorry. So anyway, here we go. Let's just start with this then. That's what I'm going to do. I'm still getting used to this software a little bit, but let's go into this, cancel. Hold on one sec as I pull up the screen that I need for you guys. And I'll go here. Just talk to myself as I go through this. All right. So I'm sharing the whiteboard. So hopefully y'all can see what I have going on here on the screen. Let's go from there. So I'm going to just draw on here. This is what I'm going to use for the presentation to start. All right. I'm going to set this up. All right. If you can't see it, let me see if I can. Do me a favor, guys, and if you can't see it, let me know. Can you see the whiteboard okay? Can you guys see the whiteboard okay? Just give me the thumbs up or give me something in the chat here if you can see it okay. All right, I'm going to go on the assumption you can since I'm not hearing anything bad. Present everyone. I've got to get used to this. I'm going to stop. I'm going to reshare that in a second. Okay, so all right, so I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm going to share that whiteboard. I'm going to do a presentation on here for you. It'd be just like I was drawn on the whiteboard before. So you all can see this okay? Let me see here. All right, y'all can see that okay? I'm going to share it again, and we're going to go from there. Perfect. And here we go. All right, so what I'm going to talk about, guys, is I'm going to talk about actually financially structuring your life different so you can have more security, more guarantees, more control, more opportunity in your life. And, you know, there's a lot of talk right now and all this in the world about the growing gap between, you know, the wealthy and the middle class and all that stuff. And what I want to share with you is that it's, you know, yes, that's happening, but it's not for the reasons that they would, you know, that the mainstream media or the politicians in the world would have you believe. The reality is simply the principles in which people deal with their money. So what I want to show you are some simple steps that you can get out of the rat race and you can start implementing these simple steps and things to start thinking about so you can start taking steps towards regaining control of your financial life. So here we go. This is, and bear with me because I'm getting used to drawing on this computer, but I'm going to draw a couple things out here. Now, if you look here, these are what we call financial pyramids. Now, not pyramids in the way that you would normally think, in like network marketing or anything of that nature, that some people would think pyramid scheme, which I don't. I'm a big network marketing fan, but this is what we call financial pyramid. Now, if you're looking at the left pyramid here, the one that's actually the right side up, so to speak, if you were to take a financial planning course, that if you were to go for your CFP, your Certified Financial Planning designation, and you're in the financial industry, you actually have to learn about how to construct your financial pyramid. It's a course they teach. It's kind of the pinnacle of where people try to get for designations in the financial industry, is to become a CFP, a Certified Financial Planner. And the cool part is that, well, kind of cool is that if you do go for that designation, you have to learn about how to construct people's financial life. Now, and they do that by focusing on the left pyramid here, that financial pyramid, that strength. And so with that said, what happens is that they say, how do you build a pyramid? You build it from the bottom up, right? It doesn't make any sense for you to have $1 million in high risk investments if you don't have the right insurances or safety or rainy day funds and all that stuff, because otherwise that value of those accounts in the high risk, can evaporate overnight because of exposure that you have. So it's all about building that foundation and then going into more medium term wealth building investments, and then you can get into the higher risk. And I'll go into this all a little bit later. But what I want to show you, and this is when I give this presentation, what I get a lot of times, I get a lot of response from people, because most people are not structured like this on the left-hand side. Most people don't have the right insurances, they don't have the right coverages, or they're paying too much for their coverages. They don't have enough money in a rainy day fund just in case of an emergency. They're in a situation where they're exposed. They're in a situation where they're on this right side pyramid, what we call this inverted pyramid. Basically, it's upside down. And the reality is that these people are focusing on building their pyramid upside down because that's what's being sold to them, right? And a lot of the people, if you're on Periscope here, you might have heard of Grant Cardone. What's that? I'm good, thank you. You might have heard of Grant Cardone, and Grant Cardone wrote a great book called Sell or Be Sold, right? And so, excuse me, I had to drink. He wrote a great book called Sell or Be Sold. And if you guys are chatting, by the way, I cannot see the chat box. If you have any questions after I get done with this little whiteboard presentation, I'll be hopping back over there. I'll be able to take a look at it, and I'll interact with you then and go back and answer any questions. But in his book, Sell or Be Sold, he talks about it. The title kind of says it all in this. And what I'm trying to talk about now is that the challenge is that while everybody's being taught how to construct everybody's financial life like the left pyramid, most financial advisors are actually selling the right pyramid, because that's just what they do. If you've ever heard the expression, the younger you are, the more risk you can take, right? Or it makes sense to buy and hold your investments, then the right pyramid is where you are. And the challenge is that people don't understand there's a huge difference between saving, right, versus investing. And the thing there is that if you don't understand the difference between saving and investing, you actually have you're probably going to get burned on some level. And what I mean by that is that the financial industry has done such a great job of teaching people that you need to save, quote unquote, for your future. But the reality is they're not telling you need to save for they're telling you need to save for your future, but they're not actually showing you how to save for your future. They're actually showing you how to invest for your future. And if you don't understand the difference between saving and investing, it doesn't make any sense to invest before you have the proper savings. And in fact, when you do invest before you have the proper savings and the proper foundation built up, you're actually you're financially constructing your life in a way that is completely volatile, that is high risk, low return, which nobody wants to be in that situation, and creates massive amounts of volatility in your own life. And I'm going to explain why. Now, let me go through a little example here. Is that last year, the National Institute for Retirement Income did a survey, and 64% of Americans did not have $2,000. Did not have $2,000 in an account that they had access to in case of an emergency within 30 days. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that's a scary, scary, scary number. right? If they don't have 60 or didn't have $2,000 in case of an emergency, there's a lot of things in life that require $2,000 that if you don't have that, you're exposed. Now, 36% of the people said that they did, but the challenge is that out of those 36%, 70% of those 36% of the people had to get the money out of their 401k or a qualified plan. So what does that mean? That means that not really, it's not 64% that don't have $2,000 because of the fact people are getting it from their 401k. It's more like 90% don't have the $2,000. And I say that because if you get the money out of your 401k or IRA or anything like that, you're going to be paying taxes and penalty just to access your own money. Now, let me ask you this. How much sense does it make for you to have all your money in high risk investments that you can't touch to your 59 and a half in case of an emergency, in case of opportunity, in case of any of that? How much sense does it make for you to have that when you have no money in an account or not enough money in a safe account in case of an emergency or opportunity tomorrow or the next month or sometime in the near future? The answer is it makes no sense. Yet my question is, why does everybody do that? So what I want to show is I want to talk about some basic principles about how you could structure your life and things that you could think about. Now, most of the people that I talk to, and what I find is that really what happens is about 95% of Americans specifically are over here. I should have capitalized that. And about 5% are operating over here. Now, can you show me anything in life, any area in life where you can achieve 5% results by doing what 95% of people do? The answer there is I'd be surprised if you said yes, you had an answer there. And if you can, well, then you found the unicorn, you found the magic, the holy grail, so to speak. Because there's just I've yet to find somewhere where you can achieve results of the super successful by doing what the masses doing what the herd does. And so what I want to show you is that here's the cycle, and this is the cycle of Americans. My question is this: I'm going to go off from sharing this screen for a second, just because I want to. I'll come back to that in a second, and I want to actually go back to the video. What I want to do. Oh, we got more people on here. Awesome, fantastic. Sweet. All right, so we got more people. Feel free to ask any questions right now if you guys got any questions rolling through this. I'm happy to interact in between here. But look at this. How is it that we have a situation where we just came off the most successful, I guess, period of time in the history of the market from 1979 to today? How is it that happened, yet we have a higher percentage of people in this country that are not financially independent, are not able to retire and maintain their standard of living? What are the reasons? And so what I want to do here is I want to use this model, use what I'm showing you, this visual, to kind of explain the cycle of kind of how things go through, how the kind of cycle perpetuates itself as far as the economy goes, and how that might have an impact in your life. So I'm going to hop back over to that screen. I just wanted to check and see if there are any questions. So there are not yet, which is cool, but feel free to type them. I'll check them in. I'll check in on it. So here we go. Now this is pretty easy visual to understand, I guess, is the best way to put it. If you look at this, the right image here on this, I'll kind of put a star above it. Right? If you look at this pyramid over here, this is kind of where most of the people in the world are falling into. And the trick here is that when you put your life and you basically balance all your hopes on this one little point of instability, it sets yourself up for a lot of volatility. And here's the trick, because it's not a matter of if the market corrects. It's a matter of when. And I'm not one of those doomsday people that says it's never going to come back, because when it does go down, it will bounce back up, and that's just the way of things. But the bottom line is that I believe that there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot more opportunity in avoiding those losses than there is, and capitalizing on the opportunity at that time than there is trying to play the game like everybody else. And what I mean by that is saying, and let me show you why, is because when the economy goes down, right, the economy always goes up, and then it always comes down, and then it always goes up, and it always comes down, and that cycle perpetuates itself, and it gets bigger. The bigger the booms get, I always call it the pendulum effect, right? The further the pendulum swings one way, the faster and more violent the pendulum will swing back the other way. Meaning the bigger the boom, that means the bigger and faster the bubble's going to burst and the bigger the bust is going to be. And so what I try to coach my people to is keeping their money safe, secure, guaranteed, and then taking advantage of the opportunity on the way down. So if you think that the stock market might have a downswing, which we're kind of living a little bit right now, who knows what that's going to really wind up looking like. But the reality is when the economy goes into a tough swing, right? Let me see if I can get this to work. People don't have enough money saved, right? The economy goes down. Let's see if you can follow along here with these images. The economy goes down, and then what happens is that you lose money out of your accounts here, right? If you can follow that, you're losing money out of those accounts. And then what happens is that if you don't have any money in a safe account and you're relying on unemployment, or when the economy struggles, basically what happens is asset prices come down, the stock market goes down, unemployment rates go up, right? And so what do? You become desperate. You have to feed your family, you have to pay your bills, you have to do all that stuff. And so this comes back to this point that I was talking about here, is this understanding the difference between saving and investing, because I want to be very, very clear that I'm not saying that investing is bad. I think investing is awesome. But I think it's key to make sure that you have a proper foundation built before you actually go and invest. That's all we're preaching here. And the reality is that what I do is I focus on this area over here and helping people build a foundation of safety and security before actually going out and investing. And the reasons for that are because we're trying to help people build more stability, more security, and be able to take advantage of more opportunity in life as the economy goes down. Because I mean, everybody here has heard that, heard the sayings, the rich get richer, or money makes money, and all that stuff. And there's a popular phrase used. People love to say cash is king, and I'll say that cash used to be king when interest rates were higher, but we're in the cheapest interest rate environment in the history of the world, or the history of the country, I should say. I don't know about the rest of the world, but so we're in the cheapest interest rate environment in the history of this country. So with that said, as the economy changes, as interest rate environments change, so too do your strategies and how you utilize money and how you leverage debt and how you leverage financial strategies. And what we say, is that cash isn't king, access to cash is king. And if you have all your money tied up right here, then you're not putting yourself in a position where you have a lot of access to cash. Now, furthermore, I was asking before, if you have 95% of Americans who are doing something a certain way and who've constructed their financial life like this, the reason bubbles burst and the reason they burst so fast and the reason asset prices like houses go down so fast is because of the foreclosure rates and the speculation and all that, and that has to do with it. But when you have 95% of Americans who've built their foundation on this one little point of instability, what happens is when they have no safety, when they have no savings, and the economy goes into downswing, if they lose their job, it doesn't take a large correction or a large uptick in unemployment or a decrease in the labor participation rate, so to speak, to cause a lot of problems or to cause the economy to spin out of control. So what happens is this cycle, when that happens, your whole pyramid falls over, it kind of crumbles around you, and you have to rebuild that up. And so what this webinar is really geared to do is kind of give an intro of a tunnel of information to go from the right side. Oh, that's supposed to be TWB, even though I can't write very good on this screen. But that's supposed to be TWB for True Wealth Blueprint, and that's what this whole program is supposed to do, is show people how to systematically guarantee being able to construct your life and architect your life, create the life that you love. But what I can tell you is that it's not necessarily the easy. And what I'll say to that is the easiest thing is seldom the best thing to do. And so with this, I'll say it's not the easiest way to go about things, but I guarantee you it is the most stable, the fastest, or not the fastest, but the most stable, the most secure, and the most guaranteed way to actually start living the life you love. Now, if you're a networker, if you're in network marketing and you believe in that as well, just to I'll throw this out there because I know there are a lot of people on Periscope that are networkers and are in MLMs and stuff. This is a great way to you can invest in your business, and this is how you can actually start stashing money away and waiting for the right opportunities. Because here's the thing, as you see this down arrow here, as opportunities go down for this segment of the people, right, when their financial worlds fall apart, the opportunity goes up over here. It goes up for this group. And why? Because they're sitting on, let me see if I can, what they're doing is they're sitting on cash, right? And so like in 2007, 2008, when the stock market went down and real estate prices went down, it was the people who made the most money. I mean, there were a lot of millionaires made because there's opportunity in every economic environment. There were a lot of millionaires made at that point in time who, were able to swoop in and buy foreclosed properties and businesses and whatnot because they had the cash to do it. And so, but the reality is that that's not where most of the people are. And so with that said, when you have 95% of any group of people operating in a certain way, that's going to, especially if they're dealing kind of in a fear-based mindset, or they're just trying to survive and keep their nose above water, stay out of debt, or just pay their bills or anything of that nature, it creates more opportunity for the people who actually have the resources to take advantage of it. And so what we do is we say, you know what, keep your money safe, keep it protected, build up your foundation, and put yourself in a position so you can safeguard your money until the opportunity presents itself to you. We say you should invest in something and what I would say to you is, if you don't understand something, you shouldn't invest in it. So invest in a business, invest in real estate if that's your thing, invest in stuff that really you have the capacity to manage, and you should be more engaged with what you're doing. I think one of the challenges in this world is that people are not engaged with their financial strategy. And to that, I say, if you're the kind of person who says, you know what, I've got a person who kind of manages all that for me, and so on and so forth, I'll say to you is that if you're not actively engaged in your own strategy, when it comes to, let me see here, if you're not actively, Ali, what's up, man? I just hopped over here and could see the comments. So if you're not actively engaged in your own financial strategy, hold on. If you're not actively engaged in what you're doing, well, then if something goes sideways, if things go the wrong direction, then it's a situation where, it's really hard to get upset at whoever's managing your money or whoever's doing that if you don't understand what you're doing yourself. You should never invest in something you don't understand. So does anybody have any questions about that? Now I'll get into a little more detail on it, but let me tell you kind of like what we talk about. So when it comes to the foundation of that period of your financial life, when it comes to that foundation, we basically we say a couple things. That you need to have 2 years of expenses. I just don't believe that you should be investing, so to speak, rather than saving until you have about 2 years of expenses saved up. Now, everybody's different. Everybody's got a different risk tolerance, and everybody's got different, I guess, abilities to invest and go that direction. But the bottom line is that what I suggest is that everybody have 2 years of expenses in a safe account that's beating inflation, but that is liquid, that you have access to in case of an opportunity. And it kind of blows my mind, all these people like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman and all that, who suggest that you have 6 months in an account of 6 months worth of expenses in an account. And it's funny to me that they're saying that, because the reality is that the average length of unemployment right now is 9 months in the US. Now, if the average length of unemployment is 9 months, why is it that everybody suggests that you have 6 months in a rainy day account? Well, that number, if you look and do some research on it, that number is from the 80s, when, they say, they started telling people that that's what you needed. And the reality back then, unemployment was lower, and that might have been a good number. And the challenge is that as the economy, as the world has changed, people's perspectives haven't changed with it. Excuse me. I'm coming off a massive hike here and I'm wrecked. So the challenge is that's, you know, people don't understand it. So what we do is we say, you know what, if the average length of unemployment is 9 months, you should probably have 1 year just to be, because it's prudent to be prepared for a little worse than average in my opinion. So have a year worth of income just to maintain your standard of living, just to put yourself in a position that no matter what happens in the economy or in the world, if you lose your job, if you become injured, if you're not able to work, if whatever happens, you have that there to protect yourself. The extra year, because I say 2 years is what you should have. The extra year is really just having money accessible for opportunity. It's saying, you know what, there's a lot of opportunity to be had. The market will always go up and it will always come down. It'll always go up and it'll always come down. It's the cycle of things. And so what I just believe is that if there's more opportunity when the market goes down, because you know the best way to get rich is to buy low and sell high. If there's more opportunity, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in business, whether it's in commercial real estate, or whether it's in investments in general, if there's more opportunity when the market's coming down, well then why wouldn't you put some money aside and have that money safeguarded and accessible to take advantage of opportunity like all the most successful people in the world do? Why play the rat race? Why play the game that 95% of the people in this world are doing? Because they're not achieving the results that you want to achieve, and so why do it the same way? And so that's what we preach. Now, I do want to show one other thing, because I promised this would be a quick webinar, but I want to show just an example. I got to open it up, so bear with me for 1 second. But I want to show an example of how important it is just to operate financially efficient. And what I mean by that is what I do here when I work with people is I go through examples of how important it is to not simply try to chase a rate of return for investment, but operate as efficiently as possible. And a lot of that comes down to how you pay for major capital purchases like cars or whatever. And so let me see here. I'll pull this up. Bang. So what I want to show you here is this is an example. Let me see if I can share this. Bang. All right, so I'm 35, right? So I did this for 30 years because I'm 65 is kind of like the assumed retirement age, let's say, for the average person. So I did a 30-year period, and what I did here is I just assumed that let's just assume that being a debtor, being somebody who's always going out and getting in debt over things and kind of financing immediate gratification, literally pledging future income just to get what we want now. Let's just assume that that's not the best way. And so what we're looking at here is two alternatives. We have the red line is somebody who's a cash buyer, somebody who is that cash is king mindset, somebody who believes that going out is somebody who believes that you want to delay gratification, yes, you want to go out and pay cash for it, you don't want to be in debt. But you can see here that the green line or the red line here, as you save up, what happens? Let's say, and for this example, what we're looking at is we're looking at buying 5 cars. You can see here we drained the tank 5 times. We bought 5 cars, and we're giving it 5 years to refill. So what this is saying is that if you want to buy 5 cars, if you want to buy a $25,000 car every 5 years, let's say, then you're in a situation where you need to save up for that car and you need to pay cash for it. Now, if you're the red line, you've earned interest on that account, at the end of 5 years, you're going to have $27,628. Well, when you go and buy that car, what have you done? You've interrupted compounding. You've made it so you can no longer have access to that money, and now you have to start saving again. So yes, you don't have a car payment on that, but what I tell people is that you finance everything you buy in life, because the reality is if you most people understand financing is, okay, I don't have the money, so I go to the bank and I take a loan from the bank and I have to pay the bank interest for the right to use their money. Well, when you pay cash for it, what I'll say is you self-finance, because yes, you avoid it, especially with cars, because yes, you avoided paying the interest to the bank, but you also lose the ability to earn interest, right, on that money. Because if you pay $27,628 for that car in this situation, now you've no longer, you avoided paying interest to the bank on that, but now you're no longer earning interest on your own money either. So that's an opportunity cost. So you always have to figure out what the best situation is. Is it better to finance for a lower interest rate, or is it better to pay cash? And it really depends on what the interest rate environment in the world that we're living in is actually in. And so you could see here that once they buy the car, now they have to start over and rebuild and replenish that tank. And 5 years later, they're in the same situation. They have $27,628. Now, the trick with that is that, you know, if you want to buy a car, if you don't, a lot of people don't want, they say they want to pay cash because they don't want a car payment. The reality is that you always will have a car payment if you want to buy that $25,000 car every 5 years, because if you don't start saving for the next car, well, 5 years from now, you're going to have a car payment because you're not going to have the cash to buy that car anyway. So what we try to do, all we try to do is show people that simply by operating and buying your cars in the most inside of a system, by buying anything you buy inside of a system and really understanding how to leverage and never interrupt the opportunity, never interrupt the compounding on your money. If you understand how to operate inside a system, you could see here literally without changing your cash flow, just the way you bought your cars over a 30-year period, you're looking at a difference of $319,000, all because you can see here the green is, instead of spending cash, what you're doing is you're collateralizing that money. You're taking a loan, you're never interrupting the compounding, and that money will continue to grow. You're going to be now paying that loan back through that collateralized loan back over that period of time. But you can see instead of you know, paying the 27,000 or having 27,000 at the end of 10 years, you have 62,000 at the end of 15. Instead of having 27,000 or a new car, you have 107,000. So you could, once again, this is kind of the basic, what I'm showing here is the system inside which you can operate. So you never interrupt compounding interest. You put yourself in position of basically playing your own bank. And like any other bank, there's a lot of opportunity to be made, not in the money that you're making, but not the rate of return you're getting in an investment. Let me see here. Not in the rate of return you're getting in an investment, but literally as you're looking at. Oh, all right. Can anybody see me? All right. So check your Twitter after the webinar, Chris. I'll keep listening. Webinar Jam isn't friendly, maybe because I'm that's darn. So Ali asked, hopefully he can hear, but he asked, you know, what can the mass of people do to gain financial literacy? And there's a lot of, what I would say is, if you want to gain financial literacy, you don't want to do it in the main channels, because the bottom line is there's so many people who are really trying to, you know, how do I don't want to come off as sounding overly harsh, and I got a lot going on around me here, but the to gain financial literacy, I would say, you know, really find somebody who is where you want to be, and go out. Thank you. Find it like anything else. Find somebody who you can actually relate to, and find somebody who is a mentor and start with them. You know, so many people for financial literacy, they go on and they watch, you know, the news stations, they watch Jim Cramer, they listen to Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman and all these people. And the reality is that they have some good information, but it's not necessarily the best information for your life. And these people, all the information out there is geared towards kind of talking to people who are 9-to-5ers, who are just working their jobs and kind of running the rat race. And I guarantee you, if you're on this right now, that's not where you want to be. So how can you structure your life to set up in a situation where you have the ability to take advantage of more opportunity? Now, what I just showed you there, I used the example of a car, right? Buying a car every 5 years, and just how if you operate more efficiently, you can have an extra $319,000. That's without changing your cash flow. That's all done on a guaranteed basis, by the way, and that's without taking any more risk in your life, without any of that. It's simply operating. Now, the one trick to that is it's not the easiest way. You have to delay that gratification. You cannot, you know, go out and buy that car. You know, maybe it's going to take you 5 years to capitalize that account. So you might have to drive a beater car for 5 years to to allow yourself to implement that. But the bottom line is it worth 5 years of struggle if you could have an extra $300,000 in your account at the end of 30 years with no risk? And what I would say to you is that, to me, it's a no-brainer. And it's kind of mind-blowing to me that when some people kind of don't see it. But bottom line is that financial literacy has to start with having a mentor, having somebody that you can trust, that has no agenda and you no agenda in selling you anything or anything of that nature, and really has a lifestyle and maybe a business or something that you want, because it's all about cash flow, right? It's all about achieving the lifestyle that we want, and it's all about being financially free, right? I mean, that's simply what retirement is being able to retire and have the cash flow to maintain the standard of living that you're accustomed to or that you want. And if you don't have enough cash in the bank and you're not willing to take a step backwards at retirement from a standard of living perspective, you're probably going to keep working, or retirement just isn't going to be a reality for you. And so that's a big thing. Let me see here. What do we got? Just want to see. So does everybody see that? I want to open the room up for questions. I don't want to go too long on this. If nobody has any questions, I got a couple things I'll show you. I'll keep going here, but I wanted to open it for questions. So feel free to type in the chat box, and I'll just give a second for people to kind of interact here. And if I don't see any in just a minute, I will be pulling something else up so I can show you. What I just showed you, I'm going to show you in a different level, because I get a lot of questions about this. And this is what I want to show. Yeah, let me do this. All right. So I want to take what I just showed you and break it down on a smaller scale. I'm going to show you like on a case-by-case basis. So this is a module that I like to show people, and just understanding how kind of should you pay cash, right, or should you finance it? And here's the thing, and the answer is it depends. It depends on your interest rate. It depends on what you can get for a rate of return if your money is in an account, a side account, whether it's an investment account or a savings account or whatever. But here's the deal. If you have a situation here, let's say you have a $30,000 car. A lot of people believe you should never finance a depreciating asset. And like, I'll say this, is that I think the reason that most people say that is because that was back in the day when interest rates were super high. You couldn't finance a car for under 10%. And I think in that situation, it probably does not make any sense to finance a depreciating asset, because there's no way you can, on any sort of guaranteed basis, get a 10% rate of return. But in the world that we live in now, with if you have decent credit and all that stuff, if you can get a car loan, let's just say the car loan you could get is for 1.99%, you'd kind of be a fool to not finance that, because that means if you can earn greater than 1.99%, well, and I'll say this, especially if you're a business owner, and that car expense is a business, well, then now that expense is now deductible. So that's another thing to think about. But you'll want to talk to your accountant and all that stuff about that. So, but the bottom line is that if you can earn more than 2%, let's say, on a guaranteed basis, let's say you could earn 4% on a guaranteed basis in an account. That extra 2% spread is what we call arbitrage. And if you could earn an extra 2% on that money versus paying cash for it, if you did that on every single thing in your entire life, that adds up to a lot of money over your working years, right? And you could do all that without taking any risk. And here's what I want to show you. And I'm going to change this number, because the reason I say 4% is because we have a product that can get people a guaranteed 4%, and you can actually maintain liquidity, use, and control of literally 94 to 96% of the money that you deposit in instantaneously. But the bottom line is that look at the numbers here. Is it, I'm gonna minimize this one real quick and talk about this. So let's talk about why people want to pay cash. Well, the reason people want to pay cash is because they think of you know, they look at this and they go, okay, if I'm buying this $30,000 car at 1.99%, that's $526 a month of a car payment, and you're paying $1,542 in interest over the 5-year period. Now, they pay cash because they think they're avoiding that interest expense, which they are avoiding that interest expense. But as I said before, you finance everything in life. If you pay cash for that car, you're simply self-financing that purchase, because what's happening is you're paying $30,000 cash for that car. They think that car only cost them $30,000 because they didn't pay the bank interest. But in reality is, if you could earn a guaranteed 4% on that money, what's happening is that you would have earned $6,630 on that money. So by self-financing it, by paying cash, that car actually cost you, from a wealth building perspective, actually cost you $36,630. And if you look at the $6,630 that you would have earned in interest minus the $1,542 that you would have paid, the spread between those two, let's just say it's $5,000 because it's a little over that, but roughly $5,000. That's the increase in your wealth potential simply by financing this car at 1.99% and not paying cash, right? If you handle the money, if you operate inside of a system. And so that's what we do, is we set people up with a system of that nature, and kind of coach them to do all those things. All right. John, here we go. My wife and I were listening. Investments. Yeah, so I wouldn't say there's a ratio, John. I would say this is that it's all a matter of lifestyle. It's all a matter of you know, what do you want for security, right? And what puts you in the position where you're going to be kind of most protected in any kind of environment. And so what I say is that, you know, I don't believe, you know, and there's a lot of opinions out there. I mean, if you Google this, you're going to find all sorts of information. But what I believe is that, you know, you shouldn't really have anything at risk of that nature, and you should have most of it liquid in case of an emergency or in case of opportunity. Oh, I got one request. Let me see what this is. Invite as speaker. Oh, I'll see what I could do here. How do I do that? Let me see what I could do. Can he talk? But I would say this, John, is that you want to make sure that you have enough saved in cash reserves that you have access to. And I don't do it as a percentage of total money that you've saved. I do it as saying, you know what, you have to build from the bottom up. You have to build your financial pyramid from the bottom up, and you have to make sure that your life is constructed accordingly. So what I say is you have to have, it's different for everybody. If you made $100,000 a year, I say you should have a couple $100,000 in case of an emergency, in case of opportunity, you know, in an account that you have access to before you start investing in other stuff. You know, so if you made $30,000 a year, I would say you need 60,000. It's not a percentage of total assets. It's a matter of lifestyle and income, and really just building your foundation from the bottom up. Does that make sense? And I just got a request from somebody, and I just invited him as a speaker, and it didn't work. So, all right. Well, so that's, I hope that makes sense, John. I'd love to talk to you more about that, actually. I just got your email, John, as well. And so what I'll do is I got a book I want to send you, and I think it'll make a lot of sense. And it's actually, I'm excited for you to read it. And I'd love to collaborate with you a little bit about it after. So does anybody have any questions? That's pretty much, I just wanted to share this information. I'm going to be doing a series of these webinars. This is just basically the very, very beginning to kind of understand where we're coming from. I know I just ripped through it really, really quickly, but hopefully the visuals helped. You know, I talk about these concepts a lot while I'm on Periscope. I talk about them a lot in social media and stuff like that. But the reality is that it's really hard to understand it all without, if you're just hearing it a lot of times, especially if you're not somebody who's really into studying this stuff. If you're not a complete geek about it like I am, then it's, you know, it may be not anything that you're super interested in. But the bottom line is a lot of times is the images here help people understand, because the graphs and it's a lot more clean. And so simply all we do is we try to help people operate as efficiently as possible in life and position themselves so no matter what happens, whether the economy is going awesome or whether it's struggling, you're in a position where you have more access to capital for opportunity. You have more access to capital to protect yourself against risk, you know, the rainy day fund, so to speak. Let me see here. But people don't want to be rich. Ha ha ha. So Portia, it depends. So Ali, I'll come to your question after because it's a much bigger question. Portia, I would say, how do I feel about paying car loans off quickly, not going the full duration of the loan to save on the interest? So this is what I would say, is it depends on the interest expense of that loan. So Portia, if you have like a high interest loan for a car, I would say it all depends on your situation. If you have an account that you can earn a guaranteed rate of return higher than you're paying for interest on the car, then put the money into that account. If you have, if you don't have an account where you can put money in and get a guaranteed rate of return higher than the interest rate you're paying on your car, then it makes sense to pay off the car faster and get out of debt and then free up that cash flow to then put into an account after, if that makes sense. So, okay, but when people don't want to be rich when they're 65 years old, how can people become free faster? We only have one life to live. Yeah, so it's, well, Ali, there's a lot that goes into that one. Becoming free faster has to do with not just, it has to be, you have to be more efficient, right? If you're more efficient and you stop and you plug the leaks in your financial world faster, that's going to help you be more efficient. It's going to help you accumulate money faster. It's going to put you in a position where you can be more secure faster. And Ali, here's what I'll say to that. Here's my belief is that, you know, if the market is cyclical, right, which it is, and it's not linear, it doesn't just kind of go straight up, it's down, it's all around, it's kind of violently going both ways and we never know what's going to happen. There's a lot of opportunity if the market has big corrections every 10 to 11 years-ish, 8 to 11 years. There's a lot of opportunity on the downswing. So Ali, I know people want to be rich now, so to speak, but that's just not reality, right? People don't just become rich overnight, and you got to work for it, right? That's the whole point. You have to have a system. You have to work for it. But the bottom line is, if you put yourself in a position, nobody wants to wait till 65. But Ali, if you could save up, let's say 100 grand, and have it in an account or have access to 100 grand, not when the times are good, but when times are bad, that 100 grand becomes worth a lot more money because. Think about it. Think about the real estate crash. I lived in Arizona. Our house went from being worth $360,000 to $90,000 in 6 months. Real estate in Florida, same concept, right? You could buy real estate in Florida for 25 cents on the dollar, and that real estate is bounced back. So if you had 100 grand, that 100 grand right now, Ollie, might not be worth much. But guess what? If in 2 years, 3 years, if you handle that 100 grand, instead of going like I'm going after 10% rate of return or 20% rate of return, you think about keeping that money safe and pouncing on the opportunity. That's how Warren Buffett became Warren Buffett. He put his money not all over the place, not diversified, but he was very focused and he invested in what he knew and he invested in stuff that he knew he had control of and when the time was right. So Ali, to answer your question now in a roundabout way, is saying keep that money safe, keep it secure, keep it in an area that you have access to it when the sky is falling, when everybody else is running for the hills, Chicken Little style, when they're all scared that the economy is falling apart. And because of that, asset prices are going through the floor, including real estate, which will happen again, by the way. That's where you sweep in, you buy assets, businesses, real estate, commercial properties, any of that stuff for pennies on the dollar. And I've actually interviewed a couple people who've done this, and it was 35, 40 years ago that they did it in the 70s. And because of that, they've built huge empires. They're worth over $100 million, and they're one of some of the most successful people that I have ever met in my entire life. But the bottom line is that you can't have a microwave mentality. You can't have that immediate gratification thing. You have to save for now. You don't want to have such a long-term vision that it feels like you're never going to get there. But if you understand the swings of the market, you have to understand that the time to become wealthy is when everybody else is struggling, because that's when the most opportunity comes. So how do you put yourself in a position to leverage that the most? Does that make sense, Ali? So if you know that that's coming, prepare for it. Put yourself in a situation and try to save up and keep as much money accessible in the meantime, or and have your money in a place that is kind of I'll say correction proof or crash proof, or you know, it's not in any area that when the market goes down that you're going to lose your money, whether that's real estate or anything else, stock market or anything of that nature. So I hope that makes sense. Let's see here. All right. Well, anybody have anything else? Any other questions? All right. Well, guys, I want to thank you for hopping on this. It was awesome. I'm getting used to this this new software as we're doing these live webinars. I'm going to be looking at doing these more and more often. So feel free to keep checking back to the Banking 180 website. We're going to be doing a lot of these webinars, just different topics around financial education. And here's what I want to do is I just want to show you one thing, because I want to give you an idea of what we can do. Now, what you see here is a program that I use. It's a financial education program. And what you see here is every single app that you're looking at, it looks like actually it looks like an app, but what they really are is modules, and they're modules, just they're financial education modules that teach people about how money works in one way or the other. And whether it's about, you know, understanding life insurance or qualified plans or compounding interest or investment properties or college planning, cost of credit cards, you know, understanding how to manage your debt, understanding how to pay off student loans, financing cars, financing houses, understanding the history of taxation. I'm a big fan of really understanding history to understand, because if you understand history, you know, you're going to have a more clear, be able to formulate a more clear vision for what might be to come down the road. And so you can see all these things. Literally, I have over 100 modules here that kind of talk to people and show people different ways of looking at how money works. So so yeah, that's that. So I just wanted to share that. I'll be doing these webinars talking about all these different things, but unfortunately I can't do them over Periscope because I need to be able to share my screen to be able to do it. So anyway, so Ollie, I hope that answered your question. I would love, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to email me. I'm going to pop my email in here so you guys can all email me if you want. That is my email address. Feel free to copy and paste that or save it or whatever you want to do. We are always available. If you shoot me an email, I will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And we can go from there. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have offline. But I want to thank you all for showing up. I know it was totally kind of last minute for most of you, so thank you for popping on here. Hopefully this was helpful. And if anything wasn't quite clear enough, feel free to shoot me a message or also give me a call. I'll put my phone number up. If you call today, I probably won't answer because after I get done with this, we're going to a barbecue and we're going to have a family day, but that's my phone number. And I would love to connect with any of you about any other specific questions you have offline, and we will go from there. But so thanks, guys. I'm going to bounce for now, and I will talk to you all soon. See you around.